Y'all, I have always been a loner. I've always been a loner. And I didn't realize that until my 40s. And it's okay. I'm okay with it. I have come to terms with being a loner. I do know that when I was younger, it always seemed like I was always trying to get away from the crowd. I didn't have a problem being with the crowd. I used to play basketball when I was in school, and I had lots of friends. A lot of people knew me. I knew a lot of people, but I always found myself just kind of wanting to be around one or two friends, and just being in a smaller group just seemed like I was able to have a better connection with people. If there was larger groups that I happened to be around, it just seemed like there was too much energy bouncing off of each other, too much emotion. And it started to feel like my social battery would run out, and I would find myself trying to be by myself. And I didn't realize that I still do that even in my 40s. I still do that. I'm not saying that I don't want connection. I'm not saying that I don't want to be around people. I think it's human nature for us to want to be around people, to have community, to have connection, to, be able to experience each other's energy and to just fellowship, right? It's natural for us to want to do that. And I don't really care how many times people try to say, I don't want to be around anybody. I think that at some point in our lives, we want to be able to communicate with people. We want connection. It's the reason why we get on social media and we tend to gravitate to people that we are like, or that think like us, or that we relate to. However, there comes a point where we're just like, I need some space. Some mental space. I need to be by myself. You find yourself leaving parties early. You find yourself just wanting to curl up in the bed with a good book, or to watch a movie, or, I hate to say it, scroll social media, whatever it is, right? You just feel like you need to be alone. And I didn't realize that I was still doing that until I reached my 40s, and I was still doing that. And I'm absolutely okay with it. There are a lot of people in this world that isolation is where they thrive, where they get their best creativity from. And I feel like I'm one of those people. However, I do know that it gets to a point where I'm going to need people if I want to grow. I'm going to need people to mirror back to me the things that I'm doing wrong, to mirror back to me the things that I am doing right, just to kind of get ideas from if I'm wanting to elevate. I do understand that. But like I said, there's going to be a point where I am going to want to be by myself. I'm going to be a loner. I have always been a loner, and I'm absolutely okay with it. I'm okay with not running with the crowd, as far as doing what everybody else is doing. You know what I'm saying? I am okay with not always being invited. I'm okay. I'm just okay with all of that. And, sometimes, it's like you kind of want to be asked, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to be like, I really didn't want to go. I really didn't want to do this. It's the same thing like with coworkers who invite, people out for after work activities and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm like, I would like to at least be asked. At the end of the day, I'm probably going to say no, or I'm going to come up with some kind of excuse. However, just being asked is nice, but even if I wasn't going to be asked, I'm perfectly okay with it. I'm okay with not being a part of the group. I'm okay with being on the outside. And I think it's because my entire life, being like the black sheep, being ostracized, I am used to it. So you develop these different habits of entertaining yourself with a book, a good book, or reading different books, with games, with puzzles. I used to do Sudoku, and I used to do word search puzzles all the time. And like the puzzle pieces, putting the puzzle pieces together and all of that. You just find different activities: skating, skateboarding, bike riding, going outside, walking, fishing, just random activities, right? And it allows your mind to run free, without any judgment, without any restrictions, without anybody or without feeling like you're being put in a box, right? Without anybody just attacking whatever it is that you're thinking about. You get to just think and think. And one thing that I love to do is journal. I love journaling. I love writing my thoughts out. There's a thing called brain dumping where you just write whatever comes to mind, write it out on paper, and you can read it later on. But it gives you that feel of, I am creating space for new things to come in my brain. You know what I'm saying? Like in my thoughts, I'm getting all of these thoughts, whether they're positive, whether they're negative, whether they're productive or not, whatever it is, whatever the first thing that comes to my mind in that time frame. So if I'm doing it for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you just write it all down, and you can go back and look at it and just be like, wow, what was I thinking of? But it's kind of just giving you that feel of creating space in your brain so that you can be ready and willing and accepting for new thoughts to come in, new creative ideas to come in, to allow that creativity to flow. And it's kind of hard when you've got a lot of people around you, or when you've got a lot of opinions in your ear, you've got a lot of other people just, it just seems like a distraction. And I think that's why I tend to be alone a lot. And I'm okay with it. How about y'all? I know there's a lot of people that I had a video that went viral last year, and it was about me not having any friends and talking about, while I'm in the season of isolation, or while you're in the season of isolation, what you can do if you don't have any friends, and what you can do, 10 things that you can do when you're in that season of isolation. And a lot of people, I gained a lot of subscribers from that one video. So I know that a lot of y'all probably feel the same way that I do, that you're okay with being alone. I'm absolutely okay with it, and I'm not going to lie about it. There are moments, there are small moments, there are some times where I'm just like, dang, I wish I had somebody here that, I can talk to, that I can bounce this idea off of, that we can hang out and go to this event or something. But for the most part, I'm going to say like 95% of the time, maybe between 90 to 95% of the time, I'm okay with just being by myself. Because if I feel like changing my mind and not going to that event, I'm not disappointing anyone. You know what I mean? It's me. It's like, I don't feel like going. And then I just go back to doing what I was doing, and I don't disappoint anyone. I'm not hurting anyone's feelings. It's just me. And it's the freedom that I have, the freedom of being able to do what I want and not having to live up to anyone's expectations. So I have always been a loner. I've always been this way. I just didn't realize it. And as an adult, I'm like, wow, I'm still in this same thing. And I think this is just who I am. I'm not going to sit here and try to change it for anybody else. This is just me. This is who I am. I'm okay with it, and it's great. It's great to embrace it. You know what I'm saying? When you finally come to that realization of finding yourself, you know what I mean? Because for the longest, I've been taking care of everybody else. I've been putting everyone else before me, and I never really had that time to put myself first. And I don't want to say getting to know myself, but it's like I have been operating in the world as myself, just trying to be my most authentic self. However, when you sit with yourself and you start to define these moments of who you are, you start to realize, wow, I am a loner. I didn't realize that this is what I gravitate toward. This is what I end up gravitating toward at the end of the day. It's not that it's like, dang, why am I always by myself? Why why does it seem like I don't ever have any friends? How come it seems like I'm always, I'm operating in that and realizing that I find myself by myself a lot. But now in my 40s, I'm realizing, oh, wait, I'm actually gravitating toward that. At the end of the day, I am trying to get to the path of where I am by myself. And I think it's just having that moment of freedom, mental freedom, being free from exhaustion, just free from distraction, free from emotional burden of others, and just being able to sit with myself and have peace. I think that's what that is. But anyway, let me know in the comments what y'all think. If y'all feel the same way, if you're okay with being a loner, if you are a loner, if it's not something that you like being, or whatever it is. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye.